They say that money is a visitor. Today it is with you, tomorrow it is with your neighbor. But character? Character is the foundation of the house itself. If the foundation is weak, it does not matter how much gold you paint on the roof, the house will collapse. My name is Folake Adeleke. To the world, I am the Iron Lady of Lagos commerce, the woman who turned a small textile stall in Balogun Market into an empire of real estate and oil. To my husband, Chief Adebayo Adeleke, I am his Olori, his queen and partner of 40 years. But to my son, Femi, I am just mummy. And it is because I am a mother first that my heart was beating so fast against my ribs, like a trapped bird. We were standing in the middle of our master bedroom, a room large enough to fit the entire apartment we lived in when we were newlyweds. The air conditioner hummed softly, chilling the humid Lagos air, but I was sweating. "Bayo, are you sure about this?" I asked, looking at the pile of old, faded clothes on the plush velvet ottoman. My husband, usually the picture of dignity in his starched agbada and coral beads, was currently struggling to button a worn-out, gray security guard uniform. It was 2 sizes too small for his prosperous belly. "Folake, we have no choice," Adebayo said, grunting as he pulled the trousers up. "Femi is blinded. He says this girl, this Jessica, is the one. He says she is humble. He says she loves him for his soul, not his surname." I sighed, walking over to the vanity table. I looked at myself in the gold-rimmed mirror. My skin was glowing from expensive creams, my wig was Brazilian human hair, and my nails were manicured to perfection. I looked like money. "And you don't believe him?" I asked quietly. "Do you?" Adebayo countered, turning to look at me. "Femi is 32. He is kind. He has a heart of gold just like you. But he is soft. He has never known hunger. He thinks everyone smiles because they are happy, not because they want something." He was right. We had sheltered Femi. We wanted him to have the life we never had. But now he was bringing a woman home to meet us, a woman he wanted to marry in 3 months. A woman we had never met, who suddenly appeared after Femi's company announced its huge merger. The timing was too convenient. "Okay," I whispered. "Let us do it." I sat down and began the transformation. It was painful in a way. I took off the wig, revealing my natural hair, which was plaited in simple, rough cornrows. I took a wet wipe and scrubbed off the foundation, the eyeliner, the lipstick. I looked at the face staring back at me. It was an older face, tired, with lines I usually hid. Next came the clothes. I had sent our actual house manager, reception staff, and chefs away for the weekend on a paid holiday. The house was empty. Just us. I picked up the dress I had bought from a second-hand market specifically for this day. It was a faded Ankara fabric, washed so many times the pattern was barely visible. It had a small tear near the hem. I put it on. It hung loosely on my frame. I tied a mismatched wrapper around my waist and found a pair of cheap rubber slippers for my feet. When I turned around, Adebayo gasped. "You look like you did in 1985, he said softly. His eyes were misty. "When we were struggling." "I am still that woman, Bayo," I said, my voice trembling. "I will always be that woman. That is why we must protect our son from anyone who would despise her." The sound of a car horn blared from the heavy iron gates downstairs. "They are here," Adebayo said, his voice changing. He stood straighter but then remembered his role. He slumped his shoulders, adopting the posture of a tired, underpaid gate man. "I must go and open the gate. Remember, Folake, I am Baba Gate and you are Mama Nkechi, the house help." "I am ready," I said, though my hands were shaking. I watched from the window as my husband, one of the richest men in West Africa, shuffled down the driveway to manually push open the heavy black gates. A sleek black Range Rover, Femi's car, glided in. I hurried downstairs to the kitchen. The marble countertops and stainless steel appliances looked alien to me now that I was dressed in rags. I grabbed a tray and a pitcher of water. I had to get into character. I had to remember how my own mother was treated when she worked as a cleaner to send me to school. I had to remember the invisibility. I heard the front door open. Femi's voice boomed, full of excitement. "Welcome home, babe. This is it. The family house." Then I heard her voice. It was high-pitched, with a forced American accent that sounded like it was slipping in and out of a Lagos drawl. "Wow, Femi," she said. "It's okay. The garden needs landscaping, though. And that gate man? Did you see his shoes? They were disgusting. Does your father not pay them well?" My blood ran cold. She hadn't even stepped inside yet and she was already judging. I walked into the living room keeping my head bowed low. "Welcome, sir." "Welcome, Ma," I said, making my voice sound thin and uneducated. Femi looked at me, confused for a split second. I prayed he wouldn't give it away. I saw his eyes widen as he recognized me. He opened his mouth to say, "Mummy," but I shot him a sharp look, a look only a Nigerian mother can give. The look that says, if you speak you die. Femi, bless his heart, froze. He looked from me to his father, who had just walked in through the back door, sweating and holding Femi's luggage. "Thank you, Mama Nkechi," Femi stammered. He was sweating too. "Jessica, this is the staff. My parents," they called. "They are stuck in traffic coming from the airport. They will be here in an hour." Jessica didn't even look at me. She was busy scanning the room, her eyes darting to the crystal chandelier, the imported Italian sofas, the massive oil paintings on the wall. She was calculating the value of everything. "Ugh, traffic," she groaned, dropping her expensive designer bag onto the floor, right in front of where I was standing. "Well, I need a cold drink. No. The humidity in this country is ruining my blowout." She kicked off her heels. One of them hit my ankle. It hurt, but I didn't flinch. "Sorry, Ma," I mumbled. "I will get you water." "Water?" She scoffed, finally looking at me. Her eyes were cold, devoid of warmth. She looked at my faded ankara, my rough hair, my rubber slippers. Her lip curled in disgust. "I don't drink tap water. Do you have sparkling? Or freshly squeezed juice? And make sure the glass is clean. I don't want to catch typhoid from you people." "Jessica," Femi said, shocking me with his sharpness. "She is an elder. Please be respectful." Jessica's face changed instantly. The sneer vanished, replaced by a sweet, innocent pout. She reached out and touched Femi's arm. "Oh baby, I'm sorry," she cooed. "I'm just so stressed from the flight. And you know how sensitive my stomach is. I didn't mean to be rude to the help. I just want to make a good impression on your parents, and I look like a mess." Femi relaxed. He believed her. He always believed her. "It's okay," he said softly. "Mama Nkechi, please just bring some cold bottled water and some orange juice." "Yes, sir," I said, shuffling back to the kitchen. My heart was breaking. Not because of her insults, I have faced tougher enemies than a rude little girl, but because my son, my brilliant Femi, was so easily manipulated. He couldn't see the snake hiding behind the lipstick. In the kitchen, Adebayo joined me. He looked furious. "Did you hear her?" he hissed. "She called my shoes disgusting. She treated you like a piece of furniture." "She is an actress, Bayo," I whispered, pouring the juice with shaking hands. "She switches her face when Femi looks at her. We need to push her. We need Femi to see her when the mask slips." "I will go carry her bag upstairs," Adebayo said, clenching his fists. "Let us see how she treats a man she thinks is beneath her." I went back out with the tray. Jessica was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, while Femi was on a call in the hallway. She was alone in the living room. I approached her slowly. "Here is your juice, Ma." I intentionally let the glass wobble slightly on the saucer as I placed it on the side table. A tiny drop, just a single drop, of orange juice splashed onto the table's surface. Not on her dress. Not on her bag. Just on the table. Jessica reacted as if I had thrown acid in her face. "Are you stupid?" she shrieked, jumping up. She slapped the tray out of my hand. The glass pitcher shattered on the marble floor. Glass shards flew everywhere. Orange juice soaked into the expensive rug I had bought in Dubai. "Look at what you did," she screamed, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You clumsy, dirty old woman. Do you know how much this bag cost? If one drop had touched it, I would have your life." I fell to my knees, not because I had to, but because it was part of the role. "I am sorry, Ma. Please, Ma. It was a mistake." "Mistake?" She stepped closer, looming over me. "You people are all the same. Useless. Lazy. Waiting for a handout. I bet you were looking at my bag, thinking of how to steal it." "No, Ma. I am a God-fearing woman." I cried out. "God doesn't listen to failures like you," she spat. Just then, Femi ran back into the room, phone in hand. "What happened?" I heard a crash. Jessica spun around. In a split second, she brought her hands to her face and started sobbing. Genuine-sounding, racking sobs. "Oh, Femi," she cried, running to him and burying her face in his chest. "I was just sitting here, and she tripped and threw the glass at me. I think she's drunk." I was so scared. I stayed on my knees, staring at the floor. My blood was boiling. The lies flowed out of her mouth like water from a tap. Femi looked at the shattered glass, then at me. "Mama Nkechi? Is this true? You threw the tray?" I looked up at my son. I saw the conflict in his eyes. He had known Mama Nkechi for only 10 minutes, but he knew his parents didn't hire drunks. Yet, he was holding the woman he loved, who was trembling in his arms. "I did not throw it, sir," I said quietly, keeping my eyes on the floor. "It slipped." She was startled. "She's lying," Jessica wailed, looking up at Femi with big teary eyes. "Look at her. She gave me such a hateful look when I walked in. Femi, I don't feel safe with her here. Can't you fire her? Before your parents come home? Please?" Femi looked at me. He looked at the mess. He looked at his fiancée. "Jessica, calm down," Femi said. "My parents will handle it. Why don't you go upstairs and freshen up? Baba Gate will show you to the guest wing." "I want the master suite," Jessica said, wiping her eyes instantly. "The guest wing is probably dusty. The master suite is for my parents," Femi said firmly. "But they aren't here," she snapped, then caught herself. "I mean, just until they arrive? I need space to breathe. Please, baby?" Femi sighed. He was tired. "Fine. Just for an hour. Go." Adebayo, who had been standing silently by the stairs, stepped forward. "I will carry the bag, madam," he grunted. Jessica brushed past Femi and marched toward the stairs. She stopped in front of Adebayo. He held out his hand to take the handle of her suitcase. She didn't hand it to him. Instead, she let go of the handle, letting the heavy suitcase fall onto Adebayo's foot. My husband winced, biting his lip to stop a cry of pain. It was a heavy bag. "Oops," Jessica said, her voice dripping with malice. She leaned in close to Adebayo, so close that Femi, who was instructing me to clean the glass, couldn't hear. But I have the ears of a mother protecting her young. I heard every word. "Listen to me, old man," she whispered to my husband. "Don't think you can stare at me. When I marry Femi, the first thing I'm going to do is clear out all this trash. That means you and that hag in the kitchen. You'll be begging on the streets by Christmas." She turned, flipped her hair, and sashayed up the stairs. Adebayo looked at me across the room. His eyes were no longer just angry. They were dangerous. He gave me a tiny nod. "The game is on." I began picking up the broken glass. Femi knelt down beside me. "I am sorry, Mama Nkechi," he whispered, helping me pick up a large shard. "She is just anxious. She is not usually like this." I looked at my son. He was apologizing for her. He was cleaning the floor with me. He was a good man. And that was exactly why she was going to destroy him. "Oga Femi," I said softly. "Sometimes the eyes see what the heart wants them to see. But the ears hear the truth." "What do you mean?" he asked, pausing. I opened my mouth to speak, to give him a hint, but suddenly, a loud crash came from upstairs. It sounded like wood splintering. Then Jessica's voice screamed down the staircase. "Hey, gate man. Where is my jewelry box? It was in this bag. You stole it. I know you stole it." Femi stood up abruptly. "What?" "I am going to call the police," Jessica screamed. "Get up here right now. I will have you locked up." I looked at Femi. His face went pale. He ran toward the stairs. I stood up, brushing the glass dust from my wrapper. I looked toward the hallway where my husband was standing. He hadn't stolen anything. But Jessica didn't know who she was accusing. She had just declared war on Chief Adebayo Adeleke in his own house. I followed Femi to the stairs. As I put my foot on the first step, I heard a sound that made my stomach drop. Jessica was on the phone, her voice loud and clear from the landing above. She thought Femi was still downstairs. "Babe, relax," she was saying into the phone, laughing. "Yeah, I'm in. The house is huge. The parents aren't even here. Just some dirty servants. Listen, as soon as the ring is on my finger, I'm selling this place. I don't care about his heritage. I need that cash. The debts are catching up to us." Femi stopped halfway up the stairs. He froze. He had heard. But Jessica wasn't done. "And Femi? Please. He's a puppy." I snap my fingers, he jumps. "I just have to deal with his ancient parents for one dinner and then—" She stopped talking. Femi had taken another step. The floorboard creaked. Silence. Then Jessica appeared at the top of the banister, phone in hand. She looked down and saw Femi standing there, his face a mask of shock and betrayal. She didn't look scared. She looked at him, then she looked at me standing at the bottom of the stairs. A slow, wicked smile spread across her face. "Oh," she said, her voice dropping an octave. "You heard that?" She laughed. It was a cold, terrifying sound. "Well," she said, leaning over the railing, "it doesn't matter what you heard, Femi, because you're going to forget it. Do you want to know why?" She held up a small white plastic stick. "A pregnancy test. Because you're going to be a father." Femi grabbed the banister for support, his knuckles turning white. I looked at Adebayo. He looked at me. This was not part of the plan. In my culture we say that when a child stumbles he looks forward to see if anyone saw him fall. But when an elder stumbles he looks backward to see what caused the fall. I stood at the bottom of the grand mahogany staircase, my hand clutching the rough fabric of my servant's wrapper, looking backward. I was looking at the past 32 years of raising Femi. Had we loved him too much? Had we made his path too smooth so that he never learned to spot the stones that could break his ankles? Up on the landing the silence was heavy, thick enough to choke on. Femi was staring at that small white stick in Jessica's hand as if it were a loaded gun. Pregnant. Femi whispered. His voice was broken. The anger that had been rising in him moments ago, the anger from hearing her plan to sell our family home, seemed to dissolve, replaced by a terrifying paralysis. Jessica's smile softened into something that looked frighteningly like maternal grace. She was a chameleon. 1 minute a viper, the next a dove. "Yes, baby," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound vulnerable. "I found out this morning. I was so scared to tell you. I know things are complicated. I know you heard me on the phone just now." She took a step down toward him. "Femi, I was just venting," she lied. The lie was smooth like oil on water. "My friend Sheila, she was making fun of me for marrying a Nigerian man. I was just trying to sound tough. You know I don't mean it. I love this house. I love us." She placed his hand on her flat stomach. "And now there is an us inside me. A little Adeleke." I watched my son. I saw his shoulders slump. I saw the fight leave his eyes. He was a man of honor. A man raised by Adebayo Adeleke to never abandon his responsibilities. She knew this. She had found the one lock on his heart that could not be picked, only forced open. "A baby," Femi murmured. He looked at her, searching for the truth in her eyes, but she was too good. She leaned her head on his shoulder and sobbed. "I'm so scared, Femi. Don't be mad at me. Please." Femi wrapped his arms around her. "I'm not mad. I just need a minute." He looked over her shoulder, down the stairs, straight at me. His eyes were pleading. He was drowning and he couldn't ask the maid for help. "Mama Nkechi," he called down, his voice hollow. "Please, ask Baba Gate to bring the bags up. And start dinner. Jessica needs to eat. Something healthy." "Yes, Oga," I said, bowing my head. Jessica pulled back from Femi, wiping her dry tears. She looked down at me and for a second the mask slipped again. She gave me a look of pure triumph. Said, "I have one. You're nothing." "And make it spicy," Jessica barked, her voice suddenly strong again. "Pepper soup. Catfish. Fresh fish, not that frozen rubbish you people eat. And I want pounded yam. If I hear the sound of a blender I will fire you myself. I want to hear the pestle hitting the mortar. Hand pounded." "Yes, madam," I mumbled. She turned and led my son into the master bedroom, my bedroom, and slammed the door. I walked to the kitchen, my legs feeling heavy. Adebayo was standing by the back door, shaking with rage. He had heard everything. "She is lying, Folake," he hissed, pacing the small kitchen floor in his tight security uniform. "She is not pregnant. It is a trick. Did you hear how she switched? 1 minute she is selling my house to pay debts, the next she is carrying the heir to the Adeleke empire." "Lower your voice, Baba Gate," I warned, though my own heart was hammering. "If she hears you speaking grand English, the game is over. Let it be over." Adebayo slammed his hand on the counter. "I will go up there, tell Femi who we are, and throw that witch out onto the street." "And then what?" I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me. "Femi is honorable. If there is even a 1% chance she is carrying his child, he will never forgive us for throwing her out. He will follow her. She will twist it. She will say his wicked parents hate their grandchild. We will lose him, Bayo. We will lose him forever." Adebayo deflated. He leaned against the refrigerator, wiping sweat from his forehead. "So what do we do, Olori? We serve her? We let her sleep in our bed. We investigate," I said, my voice hardening. "She said she took the test this morning. That means the wrapper, the box, or the receipt is somewhere. And she said she has debts. We need to find out who she owes and how much." I pointed to the pantry. "Get the yam. I have to pound. If I don't make the noise, she will come down here." "You? Pound yam?" Adebayo looked at me with sorrow. "Folake, you haven't pounded yam in 20 years. Your back." "My back is strong enough to carry this family," I said firmly. "Start the fire, Baba Gate. We have work to do." An hour later, the rhythmic clomp-clomp-clomp of the pestle hitting the wooden mortar echoed through the house. My arms burned. Sweat trickled down my spine. It was exhausted work, the kind I thought I had left behind in my 20s. But every strike of the pestle was a release of my anger. Pom. That was for calling my husband a dirty gate man. Pom. That was for lying to my son. Pom. That was for the audacity of thinking she could outsmart Folake Adeleke. The smell of spicy catfish pepper soup filled the air. I had made it exactly the way Femi liked it, hot enough to clear the sinuses, rich with scent leaf and crayfish. I arranged the tray. Adebayo had gone outside to guard the gate, but really he was making calls on his burner phone to his private investigators, trying to run a background check on Jessica from America. I carried the heavy tray up the stairs. My knees ached. I paused at the door of the master suite. I could hear voices inside. "You need to relax, babe," Femi was saying. "The flight, the stress, it's not good for the baby." "I know," Jessica's voice was whiny. "But this room, it's so old-fashioned. All this heavy wood. It smells like old people. When we take over, we need to gut it. White marble everywhere. Minimalism. This is my parents' room, Jessica. We aren't taking over." "Oh, Femi, stop being so sentimental. They're never here. You said they live in London half the year. We need the space for the nursery. Unless you want your son sleeping in that dusty guest room?" She was already using the baby as a weapon. I knocked on the door. "Food is here, Ma. Enter," she yelled. I pushed the door open. The sight made my blood boil. Jessica was lying in the center of my king-sized bed, wearing one of my silk robes that she must have taken from the closet. She had her feet propped up on my pillows. Femi was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking like a stranger in his own home. I set the tray down on the side table. "Pepper soup and pounded yam as you requested, Ma." Jessica sat up and peered into the bowl. She sniffed it suspiciously. "Did you wash your hands?" she asked, looking at my rough fingernails. "Yes, Ma. Thoroughly." She picked up the spoon, took a sip, and then made a face. "It's too spicy. Are you trying to kill me?" "I have heartburn." "I made it the way Olga likes it," I said quietly. "I am the one eating for two," she snapped. "Take it back. Add water. Dilute it. God, do you have to be taught everything?" Femi stood up. "Jessica, it smells fine. Mama and Ketchy worked hard." "It burns my throat, Femi." She threw the spoon back into the bowl, splashing soup onto the tray. "Why do you always take the side of the help? Do you want our baby to be born with an ulcer?" Femi sighed, rubbing his temples. He looked exhausted. He looked at me. "Mama and Ketchy, please, just add a little hot water." "Yes, sir," I said. I picked up the tray. As I turned to leave, I saw it. On the vanity table, amidst her scattered makeup and jewelry, was her handbag. It was open. Sticking out of the side pocket was not a pregnancy test box, but a folded piece of paper that looked like a hospital invoice. I needed to see that paper. "I will be right back," I said, backing out of the room. I went downstairs, my mind racing. I needed to get Femi out of that room. I needed 5 minutes alone with that bag. I entered the kitchen where Adebayo was waiting. "Did she eat?" he asked. "She is a demon," I said, dumping the soup into a pot to add water. "Bayo, I need you to create a diversion. A loud one. I need Femi to come downstairs." Adebayo's eyes lit up. "A diversion? I can do that." "What kind?" "Anything. Just get him out of that room." Adebayo nodded and marched out the back door. 2 minutes later, the entire house plunged into darkness. The generator cut out. The hum of the air conditioner died. Silence fell, followed immediately by a scream from upstairs. "Femi?" "The lights." I smiled in the darkness. My husband, the engineer. He had cut the power at the breaker box. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and ran up the stairs. "Femi?" "Olga." I called out. "The generator has failed. Baba Gate is trying to fix it, but he needs help holding the torch." Femi appeared at the top of the stairs, using his phone light. Okay. I'm coming." "Jessica, stay there. I'll be right back." "Don't leave me alone in the dark," she shrieked. "It's spooky in here." "It's just for a minute, babe. Mama and Ketchy is here." Femi rushed past me, running downstairs to help his father. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom. The room was pitch black, save for the moonlight filtering through the curtains. "Mama and Ketchy?" Jessica's voice trembled. She was afraid of the dark. "Good." "I am here, madam," I said, keeping my voice low. "I will light a candle for you." "Just fix the damn lights," she snapped, but I could hear the fear. I moved toward the vanity table, using the dim light from the hallway. "I have a candle here, Ma." I fumbled on the table, pretending to look for a lighter. My hand found her bag. My fingers dove inside. I felt the cold metal of her phone, a lipstick, and then the crisp paper. I pulled it out and shoved it into the waistband of my wrapper. I cannot find the matches, I said. Let me go to the kitchen. You are useless, she screamed. Get out. I hurried out of the room, my heart pounding against my ribs like a talking drum. I ran down the hall into the guest bathroom and locked the door. I pulled the flashlight from my pocket and shone it on the paper. It was indeed a medical document. It was from a clinic in Atlanta, Georgia, dated 3 weeks ago. I squinted to read the medical jargon. It was a discharge summary for a Jessica Davis. Patient complaint, abdominal pain. Diagnosis, ovarian cysts. Notes, patient advised that due to scarring, natural conception is highly unlikely. Fertility treatments recommended if pregnancy is desired in the future. I gasped, covering my mouth with my hand. She wasn't pregnant. She couldn't be pregnant. Not naturally. And certainly not by accident. The pregnancy test was a fake. A prop. I heard the hum of the generator kick back on. The lights flickered and steadied. Thank God. I heard Jessica yell from the bedroom. I stared at the paper. I had the smoking gun. I had the proof that would free my son. I just had to show him. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped out into the hallway. Femi was coming up the stairs, wiping grease off his hands. Femi? I whispered urgently. Oga? He stopped, looking at me. Mama Nkechi? What is it? Is the food ready? Forget the food, I said, abandoning my servant accent. My voice was crisp, authoritative. The voice of Folake Adeleke. Come here. Look at this. Femi frowned, confused by the sudden change in my tone. Mama, why are you speaking like that? Look. I thrust the paper toward him. He took a step toward me, reaching for the paper. Suddenly, the door to the master bedroom flew open. Jessica stood there. She wasn't looking at Femi. She was looking at me. And she was holding something in her hand. It was my phone. My real phone. The iPhone 15 Pro Max that I had hidden under the mattress in the guest room, thinking it was safe. She held it up. The screen was lit. Femi, she said, her voice icy calm. Why does the maid have a phone that costs $2,000? And why is the background photo a picture of you? I froze. Femi looked at the phone in her hand. He saw the screensaver. It was a selfie of me and Femi at his graduation, beaming. Jessica swiped the screen. It was unlocked. And why, she continued, her eyes narrowing into slits, does she have a text message from hubby sent 5 minutes ago that says, I cut the power. Get the evidence? She looked from the phone to me and then to Femi. Femi, she said, a dangerous smile playing on her lips. I think your staff are stalking you. Or, is there something you're not telling me? Femi looked at me. He looked at the paper in my hand. He looked at the phone in hers. Mama Nkechi. Femi started, his voice shaking. Who are you? I looked at my son. The truth was stuck in my throat. If I told him now, Jessica would spin it. She would say we were crazy, obsessive parents spying on him. She would play the victim. And with the fake pregnancy, she still held the ultimate card. But if I lied, I stammered. Jessica laughed. I knew it. You're criminals. Kidnappers maybe? Femi, call the police. Now. She lunged for Femi, grabbing his arm. They've been watching us. That gate man isn't a gate man, is he? Oh my God, Femi, they're going to kill us and steal your money. No. I shouted. Femi, listen to me. Read this paper. I tried to hand him the medical report, but Jessica slapped my hand away. The paper fluttered over the banister, drifting down to the entrance hall below. Get away from him. Jessica screamed, pushing me hard. I stumbled back. My rubber slipper caught on the carpet. I lost my balance. Mummy? Femi shouted, the words slipping out unconsciously as he saw me fall. I hit the floor hard, my head banging against the wall. The world spun. Through the dizziness, I saw Adebayo running up the stairs, having heard the commotion. He was no longer shuffling. He was charging like a bull. Don't touch her. Adebayo roared, his voice thundering with the authority of a chief. He reached the top of the stairs and stood between me and Jessica. He glared at her, his chest heaving. You have made a grave mistake, young woman, Adebayo growled, his accent gone, his posture regal despite the gray uniform. Jessica's eyes went wide. She looked at Adebayo, then at me, and then at Femi. The pieces clicked into place. Oh, she whispered. Oh, I see. She didn't look scared. She didn't look ashamed. She looked at Femi, who was staring at his father in shock. Well, Femi, Jessica said, crossing her arms and leaning against the door frame. It looks like your parents are liars too. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She patted her stomach. So, here's the deal. You kick them out right now. Or I leave and you never see your child again. Femi looked at his father, the billionaire in a gateman's uniform. He looked at his mother, sprawling on the floor. And he looked at the woman carrying his child. Choose, Femi, she hissed. There is a proverb in my village that says, only a fool tests the depth of the river with both feet. I had tested the river with both feet. I had walked into my own home disguised as a servant, hoping to catch a thief, but instead, I had drowned the trust of my only son. The hallway was silent, save for the hum of the air conditioner which had kicked back to life. I was still on the floor where Jessica had pushed me. My husband, Chief Adebayo Adeleke, the lion of Lagos real estate, stood above me, his chest heaving inside that tight, ridiculous security uniform. And Femi? My soft-hearted, foolish boy stood between us and the woman who was holding a knife to the throat of our family legacy. Choose, Femi, Jessica repeated. Her voice wasn't loud. It was terrifyingly calm. She stroked her flat stomach, her eyes locked on Femi's face. The past or the future? Them, or your baby? Femi looked at us. I saw the tears welling in his eyes. He looked at his father, a man he had worshipped his entire life, now standing exposed as a liar. He looked at me, his mother, who had played a game with his heart. Mummy? Daddy? Femi's voice cracked. What? Why did you do this? To protect you. Adebayo boomed, his voice shaking the walls. Because love is blind, Femi? But marriage? Marriage is an eye-opener. Look at her. She is manipulating you. I am pregnant. Jessica shrieked, playing her role to perfection. She grabbed Femi's hand and placed it on her belly. Your father is calling your child a lie. Are you going to let him curse our baby before it is even born? Femi pulled his hand away gently, but he didn't step away from her. He looked at Adebayo with a hardness I had never seen before. You lied to me, Femi said, his voice dropping to a whisper. You humiliated me in front of the woman I love. You pretended to be servants in my home. Do you know how crazy that is? Do you know how controlling that looks? Femi, listen, I tried to stand up, my knees aching. No. Femi held up a hand. I can't deal with this right now. She's stressed. The baby is at risk. You people, you need to leave. The words hung in the air like smoke. You need to leave. Leave? Adebayo laughed, a bitter, incredulous sound. This is my house, Femi. I built this house before you were even a thought in God's mind. And you gave it to me, Femi said quietly. You gave me the deed for my 30th birthday. Legally, this is my house, Daddy. Adebayo recoiled as if slapped. He had given the house to Femi, yes. A gesture of pride. A transfer of legacy. He never imagined that legacy would be used to lock him out. Fine, Adebayo spat. If you choose this witch over your parents, then enjoy your house. But do not come crying to me when she sucks you dry. Get out, Jessica said, a smirk dancing on her lips. You heard him. Get out. I stood up, smoothing my wrapper. I had one card left to play. The paper. The medical report from Atlanta that proved her womb was a barren desert, unable to carry the life she claimed was there. I looked over the banister. The paper was lying on the marble floor of the entrance hall, white against the dark stone. If I could just get to it, if I could just force Femi to read it. Bayo, let us go, I said, grabbing my husband's arm. I needed to get downstairs. Adebayo looked at me, confused by my surrender, but I pinched his arm hard. He fell silent. We turned and walked down the stairs. My heart was pounding. 10 steps. 5 steps. The paper was right there near the front door. I reached the bottom step. I lunged for the paper. But Jessica was faster. She had followed us down, her movements quick and sharp, not like a pregnant woman at all. As I bent down, her heel came down hard on the paper. Oops, she said, looking me dead in the eye. She bent down, picked up the paper, and crumpled it in her fist. What is that? Femi asked from the top of the stairs. He was looking down at us, looking like a lost little boy. Just some trash the maid dropped, Jessica called up, her voice sweet as honey. I'll take care of it, baby. Go lie down. I'll lock up after them. She looked at me. The malice in her eyes was cold and ancient. She leaned in close, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, my perfume. You tried it, old woman, she whispered. But you missed. Now, get out of my house before I call the security company you pay for to drag you out. She opened the heavy front door and gestured to the night. Adebayo was shaking with rage. He looked ready to tear the door off its hinges. But I took his hand. There is a time for war and there is a time for retreat. If we fought now, physically, Femi would only see us as aggressors. We had to let him see the victimhood later. Let us go, Adebayo, I said softly. The night is long but the day will break. We stepped out onto the porch. The humid Lagos air hit us. The crickets were chirping, indifferent to our tragedy. Bam! The heavy door slammed shut behind us. Then came the sound of the deadbolt sliding home. We were locked out. The owners of the Adeleke group. The power brokers of Lagos. We were standing on our own doormat, dressed in rags, locked out by a girl who didn't even know the price of the yam she refused to eat. Adebayo ripped the gray security cap off his head and threw it onto the driveway. I will destroy her, he roared at the closed door. I will freeze Femi's accounts. I will cut off the power. I will bury her in lawsuits. Quiet, Bayo, I hissed, pulling him away from the door and toward the driveway. Do you want the neighbors to see Chief Adeleke shouting like a madman in a gateman's uniform? We walked down the long driveway to the main gate, the gate my husband had manned just hours ago. So what do we do? Adebayo asked, his voice trembling. We go to a hotel? In these clothes? We look like beggars, Folake. No hotel in Victoria Island will let us past the lobby. I looked at him. He was right. We had no phones, Jessica had mine and Adebayo's burner was dead. We had no wallets. We had left everything inside the house in our staff quarters bags. We had nothing but the rags on our backs. We go to the boys' quarters, I said. The BQ. Adebayo looked at me as if I were insane. The staff quarters? But the staff are on holiday. Exactly, I said. We have the spare key hidden under the generator house stone. We sleep there tonight. We monitor the house from the back. We do not leave the premises. Sleep in the BQ? Adebayo looked at his hands. I am a chief. Tonight you are a father fighting for his son, I said firmly. Swallow your pride, Bayo. It will not kill you. We walked around the side of the main house, sticking to the shadows. We found the key. We let ourselves into the small, cramped servants' room behind the kitchen. It smelled of stale soap and heat. There was a bunk bed with a thin mattress. Adebayo sat on the lower bunk, his head in his hands. This is rock bottom, he muttered. No, I said, pacing the small room. This is strategy. Jessica thinks we are gone. She thinks she has won. That makes her careless. I sat next to him. Bayo, that paper she crumpled. It was a medical report. She cannot have children naturally. She has scarring. Adebayo looked up, his eyes widening. So the pregnancy is a lie. 100%. Then we just tell Femi? We tried. He didn't listen. He thinks we are toxic liars. We need proof that he can see with his own eyes. We need to catch her in the act. Suddenly, the small window of the BQ, which looked out onto the main driveway, lit up with headlights. I jumped up and peered through the slats of the blinds. The front gate, the automatic one, was opening. Who is coming here at this hour? Adebayo asked, joining me at the window. A white G-Wagon rolled into the compound. It was flashy, loud, with music thumping from inside. It parked right behind Femi's Range Rover. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, muscular, wearing a tight black t-shirt and ripped jeans. He had dreadlocks tied back and gold chains glistening on his neck. He looked like a bad boy from a Nollywood movie. Who is that? Adebayo whispered. Then the front door of the main house opened. Jessica stepped out. She was no longer acting the part of the fragile, pregnant victim. She was holding a glass of wine, my vintage wine. She ran to the man. She didn't hug him like a brother. She didn't greet him like a cousin. She jumped into his arms, wrapping her legs around his waist, and kissed him. A long, deep, passionate kiss. Adebayo gasped. Is that? That is not Femi, I whispered, my blood running cold. Jessica laughed, pulling back. We could hear her voice clearly through the thin glass. Baby, she squealed. You made it. Did you see the gate man? Oh wait, he's gone. The man laughed, slapping her backside. So, did the plan work? Did the old fools buy it? Hook, line and sinker, Jessica crowed, taking a sip of wine. Femi kicked them out. We have the house to ourselves. And the best part? Femi took a sleeping pill. He's out cold upstairs. The man grinned, looking up at the massive mansion. So, we start phase 2? Phase 2, Jessica agreed. We empty the safe. We transfer the crypto. And by Monday we are on a flight to Brazil before they even know the money is gone. And the pregnancy? the man asked. Jessica threw her head back and laughed. I'll have a miscarriage tomorrow due to the stress caused by his terrible parents. It's perfect. She took the man's hand and led him into the house, into my house, where my son lay sleeping, drugged and vulnerable. Adebayo was already moving toward the door. I am going to kill him. I am going to kill them both with my bare hands. I grabbed him by the waistband of his trousers. Stop. Folake, let me go. They are robbing us. They have drugged our son. If you go in there now, it is 2 against 1. I hissed. That boy is muscle. You are 62 years old with a bad knee. If you burst in, he will beat you or worse, claim self-defense. Jessica will say you broke in to attack them. So we do nothing? Adebayo was crying now, tears of frustration streaming down his face. No, I said, my mind racing. I looked around the small room. I saw an old toolbox under the bed. I saw the main power breaker box for the entire estate located on the outside wall of the BQ. I looked at my husband, the billionaire, the genius engineer. Bayo, I said, a dangerous calm settling over me. Do you remember when we started our first business in 1980? When the council cut our light and you rewired the entire street just so we could keep the sewing machines running? Adebayo wiped his face. He looked at me and the fire in his eyes changed from rage to determination. I remember. Can you cut the power to the house? I asked. Not just turn it off. I mean kill it. Disable the security cameras. Disable the automatic gates so they cannot drive out. Lock them in. Adebayo cracked his knuckles. I can make the house as dark as a tomb. Good, I said, reaching into the toolbox and pulling out a heavy wrench. You kill the lights. You lock the gates. And what will you do, Olori? I looked at the main house, where the thieves were drinking my wine and planning my son's ruin. I tightened my grip on the wrench. I am going to wake up Femi, I said. And I am not going to use a gentle voice. How will you get in? The kitchen window, I said. The latch has been broken since 1999. Femi promised to fix it but he never did. Today his procrastination will save his life. Adebayo nodded. He grabbed a pair of wire cutters. Give me 2 minutes, he said. I watched him step out into the shadows. I took a deep breath. I was Folake Adeleke. I was a mother. And tonight I was going to war. I crept through the garden, the wet grass soaking my rubber slippers. I reached the kitchen window. I slid my fingers under the frame and pushed. It groaned, then slid up. I climbed over the sink, knocking over a bottle of dish soap. I landed silently on the kitchen floor. From the living room I heard the sound of breaking glass and laughter. They were celebrating. Then snap. The hum of the refrigerator died. The light from the hallway vanished. The music cut off. Total darkness. What the hell? I heard the man's voice boom from the living room. Jessica, did you pay the light bill? The generator should kick in, she said, sounding annoyed. It didn't. Adebayo had disabled the changeover switch. I can't see a thing, the man grumbled. Use your phone torch. I used the confusion to move. I didn't go to the living room. I went straight for the stairs. I had to get to Femi. I moved like a ghost, guiding myself by memory. I reached the landing. I opened Femi's door. The room was silent. I could hear his heavy, rhythmic breathing. I rushed to the bed and shook him. Femi? Femi, wake up. He groaned, dead weight. Jessica, leave me. It is not Jessica. I whispered harshly, slapping his cheek. Femi? Wake up. There is a man in the house. He didn't stir. The drugs were strong. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the hallway. Babe? The man's voice called out from the stairs. I think I heard someone upstairs. It's probably the rats, Jessica said, her voice getting closer. Or maybe Femi woke up. If he wakes up, the man said, his voice dropping to a menacing growl, I'll have to put him back to sleep. Permanently. I froze. I was trapped in the bedroom with my unconscious son. They were coming. And I had nowhere to hide. A mother's heart is the bravest shield. It does not matter how heavy the weapon or how dark the night. When her child is in danger, she is stronger than iron. The darkness that Adebayo had unleashed was absolute. It swallowed the mansion whole, covering the imported marble and velvet in a terrifying shroud. I stood frozen beside my son's massive four-poster bed, the heavy wrench a cold weight in my sweating hand. I could hear them coming. The light on the landing was their only guide. Click, click, click. The sound of Jessica's expensive heels against the marble floor, and the heavy, soft thud, thud, thud of the man's sneakers. Femi? Jessica hissed. I know you're playing games. Come on, baby. The power is off. It's not Femi, the man, who I now knew was named Tund, growled. Someone is in here. The generator breaker was disabled, not tripped. This is sabotage. Tund's voice was too close. They were at the door. I had seconds. I pushed myself against the wall, behind the enormous wardrobe, praying that the shadow it cast was deep enough to hide my faded Ankara dress. The light of a phone torch cut into the room, sweeping across the carpet. It landed on Femi, lying still and helpless on the bed. See, Jessica said, sounding relieved. He's out cold. The pill worked perfectly. Tund stepped fully into the room, his shadow stretching across the ceiling. He was much taller than Adebayo, pure muscle, moving with the predatory grace of a professional. Wait, Tund said, stopping in the middle of the room. He sniffed the air. I smell something, cheap soap. Like the help. He slowly rotated the torch, scanning the periphery of the room. My heart hammered against my ribs so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I closed my eyes, focusing on the scent of the man, sweat, cheap cologne, and danger. The light beam touched the wardrobe. I didn't breathe. Tund took a step toward my hiding spot. Come out, Mom and Ketchy. You want to play hero? You want to die for your boss's son? I knew I couldn't wait. If he found me, he would subdue me instantly. I was 58 years old and he was built like a stone wall. When he was just a foot away, I moved. I swung the wrench hard and low, aiming for his knee, a move Adebayo had taught me 30 years ago to disable a potential attacker without killing them. The heavy metal connected with a sickening, wet crack. Tund screamed, a sharp, high sound of shock and pain that was immediately muffled as he dropped the phone. The flashlight skittered across the floor, spinning wildly, casting flashes of light and shadow across the expensive room. Ah! Jessica shrieked, stumbling back toward the door. Tund? Tund stumbled, clutching his knee, bellowing in pain. He tried to scramble toward the light on the floor, but I was faster. I grabbed the flashlight, keeping the wrench raised. Get out! I commanded, my voice the raw, desperate roar of a protective animal. Tund scrambled backward, dragging his leg. His face was a mask of furious pain. You be asterisk 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 asterisk, he yelled. You broke my leg. I didn't argue. I didn't waste breath. I used the sudden, shocking flash of light to sweep the room, confirming Jessica was still trapped. She wasn't helping Tund. She was already at the massive walk-in safe hidden behind Femi's bookshelf. Jessica! I yelled. Leave that alone. The money is mine, she screamed back, typing furiously on the keypad of the safe. She needed Femi's code, which he had foolishly given her. Tund roared and lunged at me, not caring about his leg. He was fast and driven by fury. I backed up quickly, using the bed as a barrier. He grabbed the nearest heavy object, a ceramic lamp on the side table, and hurled it. It shattered against the wall inches from my head. I ducked behind the bed. The darkness became our advantage again. Tund, forget her. Get the safe open. Jessica shrieked. Tund ignored her. He was focused on revenge. He circled the bed, breathing heavily. I will break every bone in your body, old woman, he grunted. I stayed low, holding my breath. I had to get to Femi. Using the sound of Tund's heavy footsteps, I crawled toward the foot of the bed, away from him. Thud, thud. Tund was close. I saw a faint reflection in the dressing table mirror, Tund raising his good leg to jump over the bed. I swung my arm out, not with the wrench but with my fingers. I scraped my fingernails across the skin of his face, the way a mad cat would. He roared again, a sound of surprise and sharp pain. My eyes. My eyes. He stumbled, falling heavily onto the bed, right next to Femi. I seized the moment. I jumped up and went straight for the safe. Jessica was there, her face illuminated by the tiny light on the safe's keypad. She had the door open. Inside, I saw stacks of foreign currency, documents, and the small leather-bound box that held our family's original gold jewelry, the first profit we ever made. No, you don't. I screamed. Jessica looked up, her eyes wild. She didn't have time to argue. She grabbed a handful of cash and then picked up the jewelry box. I raised the wrench. I wasn't aiming for her head. I was aiming for her arm. But Jessica didn't wait. She used the jewelry box like a shield, then hurled it at me. The leather box hit my shoulder, stinging sharply. Then she screamed for Tund. Tund? The key to the gate. He cut the power to the gate. Get the keys from Femi. Tund, wiping the blood from his scratched face, stumbled off the bed and reached for Femi. No! I yelled. I charged forward, abandoning the safe. My son was more important than all the wealth in the world. I hit Tund in the back with the wrench, a heavy, decisive blow that made him collapse again. He didn't move this time. But I was too late. Jessica was already kneeling over Femi. She had yanked the thick silver chain from his neck, the one I had given him for his 21st birthday, and she was holding his wrist. She was looking for his watch, which doubled as a digital key to his primary accounts. I reached out to grab her. Jessica spun around, her eyes wide with desperation. She raised her hand. And it was the syringe she must have used to inject the sleeping pill. "Stay back, Mama Nkechi," she threatened, her voice shaking. "I swear I will put him to sleep for good. You touch my son and I will tear you apart." I snarled, dropping the wrench and grabbing the ceramic base of the shattered lamp. Jessica, realizing the syringe was an empty threat, threw it at me. Then she did the unexpected. She ran to the balcony door. "The gate is locked," I screamed. "You can't leave." "The balcony leads to the guest wing roof," she shrieked, pulling the heavy glass door open. "I'll climb down. And I'm taking this." She held up the leather jewelry box, the symbol of our struggle. "Folake." Adebayo's voice thundered from outside, right beneath the balcony. He must have climbed up onto the canopy or the roof of the BQ. "Olori, jump. Jump to me." "Are you mad?" I yelled back. "It's too far. I will break my neck." "Then use the rope," Adebayo yelled. "The garden hose. It is tied to the pillar." "I saw it." Jessica paused, calculating the jump. "Goodbye, Femi," she hissed before stepping out onto the narrow ledge. I rushed to the balcony. I saw the thick black garden hose tied securely to the stone pillar of the balcony railing. Adebayo was standing below on a small roof, waiting. I looked at Femi. He was beginning to stir, mumbling incoherently. I had to get him out of the room before Tund woke up. I turned back to the balcony. Jessica was gone. I looked over the railing. She was dangling precariously from the hose, sliding down toward the ground, moving quickly, but she was going toward the back of the house, away from the locked gate. I looked at Femi. His eyes were fluttering. He was waking up. "Mummy?" he mumbled, his voice thick with drugs and confusion. He squinted at the dark room. He looked at the unconscious Tund lying on the floor beside the bed. "Femi, my son. You are safe. Get up." I pulled him hard, trying to get him to stand. What happened? Who is that?" Femi looked at Tund. Then he looked at the open safe, the strewn cash and the shattered lamp. "She tried to rob you," I whispered. "She drugged you. The pregnancy is a lie. She is running away now." Femi stared at me, his eyes wide. The fog of the sleeping pill was starting to lift, replaced by dawning horror. "Jessica lied?" "Yes, Femi. Now we have to stop her. Your father has locked the gates." We rushed back to the balcony. I leaned over. "She's gone," I cried. "She must have found a way out." Suddenly, Adebayo's voice came from below, strained with effort. "Folake. She didn't escape. The compound wall is too high. She is hiding in the garden shed. She has the jewelry box." "I'm coming," I yelled. I looked at Femi. He was still woozy but standing. He saw the rope. He saw the open balcony. He saw the wreckage. "I need to go after her," I said. "You stay here. Call the police. The phone is in her handbag." "No," Femi said, his voice regaining its strength. He looked at the unconscious Tund, then at the open safe. His face hardened. The reality had slammed into him. He saw the truth finally. "No, Mummy. I'm coming with you." "Femi, you are still drugged." "I don't care," he insisted. "She humiliated us. She almost ruined us. This is my fight now." He grabbed the heavy wrench I had dropped and took a decisive step toward the balcony. We both stepped onto the cold concrete ledge. It was a 15-foot drop to the small storage roof below. We looked down. The night was dark, but the garden shed was visible. As we stood there, preparing to climb down the hose, a chilling sound ripped through the night. It wasn't Jessica. It wasn't Tund. It was the sudden loud siren of a police car approaching the main gate. The red and blue lights pulsed through the thick foliage. Jessica must have called them herself, before Adebayo killed the power, to frame us. A voice boomed through the loudspeaker from the gate. "This is the police. Open the gate. We have reports of a break-in and assault on the premises. Armed intruders are inside." Femi and I looked at each other, horrified. We were dressed in rags, holding a wrench, standing over an unconscious man with a billionaire locked outside. We were the armed intruders. "Mummy," Femi whispered, his eyes wide with fear. They are going to arrest us. When the vulture circles your home, you do not run. You climb onto the roof and make yourself look bigger. The flashing blue and red lights painted the foliage in violent, shifting colors. The amplified voice from the loudspeaker cut through the still night like a razor. This is the police. Open the gate. We have reports of a break-in and assault on the premises. Fear is a thief. It steals your breath, your strength, your sense. But I looked at my son, Femi, who was holding the heavy wrench, his face a mixture of residual confusion and white-hot, righteous anger. The fog of the drug had lifted just enough for him to see the truth. That look gave me back my strength. They're coming for us, Mummy, Femi whispered, peering over the balcony. She called them, I said, my voice hardening into steel. Before your father killed the power. She framed us. She knew the police would find an unconscious accomplice, and two ragged criminals standing over him. I looked down at Adebayo, who was still on the lower roof, his face frantic. Bayo, I hissed, keeping my voice low. They are breaking the gate. Do not try to come in. They will shoot. Adebayo saw the police vehicle maneuvering outside the locked gate. He knew his identity as Chief Adeleke would not matter to a junior officer in the middle of the night responding to an assault call. My burner phone. Adebayo shouted back, gesturing to his trouser pocket. It's in the BQ. I have the commissioner's direct number. I need 2 minutes. Go. I yelled. But they will be inside the house in 1 minute. Adebayo nodded once, jumped lightly from the roof to the ground, and ran toward the back of the house. I looked at Femi. Your father is calling his help. We have to buy him time. We have to show the police where the real crime is. Femi grabbed a bedsheet from the bed. He quickly wrapped Tund, the unconscious thief, in the sheet and dragged him toward the wall. He stays out of the way. We need to go find her. The garden shed. I whispered. She is in the garden shed. We ran out of the bedroom, not caring about the noise. We charged down the grand staircase, stepping over the remnants of the broken glass. I pointed to the open safe door in the living room. The evidence, Femi. Look at what she did. Femi didn't slow down. We get her first, Mummy. I want her to see the handcuffs. As we reached the kitchen, the front door rattled violently. The police were using a battering ram. The kitchen window? I hissed. The one you never fixed. We exit through the back. We used the darkness of the garden. We scrambled through the open window, tumbling onto the soft earth of the flower bed. The garden was pitch black. Adebayo had cut the external lights as well. The only light was the distant, flashing blue and red hue spilling through the front door as the police finally breached the entrance. We ran towards the garden shed, which was at the deepest, darkest corner of the compound. Thump, thump, thump. We could hear the frantic beating of Jessica's heart from inside the thin wooden shed. She was trapped. Femi reached the shed first. He was no longer the soft, privileged boy. He was angry. He was determined. He yanked the latch off the door. Jessica was huddled inside, sitting on a sack of fertilizer. She had the leather jewelry box clutched to her chest. A roll of cash was sticking out of her jeans pocket. Jessica. Femi growled, standing tall and blocking the dim light. Get out. Jessica shrieked, scrambling up. Her veneer of elegance had completely peeled away. She looked feral. Stay away from me, Femi, she screamed. I told them you were violent. They're coming. The police are here. You lied. Femi roared, stepping inside. The baby, the robbery, all of it. You even drugged me. It was a business opportunity, you fool, she spat. You were too stupid to see it. I needed the money. Your life is boring, Femi. You and your controlling, old-fashioned parents. Just as she finished the last word, the beam of a flashlight cut through the dark garden. Police. Freeze. 3 officers were running across the lawn toward us, guns drawn. They had followed the sound of the screaming. There they are. Jessica shrieked, pointing dramatically at Femi and me. She threw the jewelry box at the officers, hoping the sound of the crash would distract them. They are armed. They broke into my fiancée's house and assaulted me. I am pregnant. The officers stopped, their guns trained on Femi and me. We were still in our servants' rags. Femi was holding a wrench. Jessica was dressed in an expensive silk robe. The optics were terrible. Drop the weapon, the lead officer barked. Hands above your head. Femi slowly lowered the wrench. Sir, you have it wrong. She is the intruder. She drugged me. Don't listen to him. They are the hired help, gone rogue. Jessica sobbed, pointing at the cash spilling from her pocket. They stole my money. Before the officers could move, Adebayo's voice boomed through the garden. Not from the gate, but from a separate, small high-tech speaker box hidden near the pool. The voice was loud, crisp, and filled with unquestionable authority. "Attention, officers." Adebayo's voice was now the voice of the Lion of Lagos, the chief. "I am Chief Adebayo Adeleke. I am the legal owner of this compound. Stop and listen." The officers froze. The name Adeleke was enough to pause any action in Lagos. "The woman you see, Jessica Davis, is part of a two-person internationally wanted scamming syndicate. The man you will find unconscious upstairs is the other accomplice, Tunde Aja. They assaulted and drugged my son, Femi Adeleke, to rob my safe and transfer large sums of money. Jessica is currently holding stolen goods, including a diamond jewelry box containing historic family assets." Jessica's mouth dropped open. She looked around desperately for Adebayo, but he was hidden in the darkness. "Officers," Adebayo's voice continued, cold and hard. "The Commissioner of Police, DCP Olanian, has just ordered you to secure the premises, arrest Jessica Davis, and check the unconscious man for identification. Do not leave the compound. The crime scene is inside the master suite. Check the safe." The lead officer, recognizing the weight of the name Adeleke and the specificity of the information, especially the mention of the commissioner, lowered his weapon immediately. He looked from Jessica's panicked, furious face to the honest, exhausted faces of Femi and me. "Secure the suspect," the officer commanded, pointing to Jessica. Jessica let out a guttural scream. She broke away and tried to climb over the garden fence. Two officers grabbed her instantly. "The jewelry box is in the shed, sir," I yelled. "And the proof is in her pocket. The stolen cash." As the officers wrestled Jessica, Adebayo emerged from the shadows of the BQ. He was still in the gateman's uniform, but the uniform seemed to shrink around him. The authority of his presence was overwhelming. "Femi," he said, walking toward his son. He ignored the police and the screaming woman. "Are you hurt, my Pekin?" Femi dropped the wrench and ran to his father. He hugged him fiercely, the guilt and shame finally melting away. "Daddy, I'm so sorry. I didn't listen." "I know, my son," Adebayo said, hugging him back. "But the fool that chooses a lie over the truth will always pay twice. Thank God you saw the light." The officer in charge approached Adebayo, confusion warring with respect. "Chief Adeleke, sir. We had reports." Adebayo pointed to Jessica, who was being cuffed, still screaming about the miscarriage she would fake. "You have the evidence, officer," Adebayo said, his voice calm now. "And you have the culprit. Now kindly bring the car. I believe my wife and I deserve a comfortable ride back into our home." I walked over to Femi and placed my hand on his shoulder. He turned and hugged me, his strength returning. "Thank you, Mummy," he whispered. "You saved me." "A mother's job is never done, my son," I said, a wave of exhaustion finally washing over me. The lead officer saluted. "Yes, Chief. We will secure the accomplice and process the evidence." As the officers led Jessica away, she gave me one last look, a look of pure, concentrated hatred. "You haven't won, old woman," Jessica screamed as they pushed her into the patrol car. "I will be back. You hear me? I will ruin you." Adebayo watched the car drive away. He looked at me, still in my faded Ankara. "They think we are poor and desperate, Folake," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Let us make sure the ending of this story is loud enough for them to hear, even from the prison cell. The sun does not rise to give light to the sleeping. It rises for the one who is ready to receive the day's blessings." I woke up on my own bed. The king-sized mattress felt like a cloud after the hard bunk in the servants' quarters. The room was silent, clean, and empty. The police had taken their evidence and their prisoners, Jessica and Tunde, just before dawn. I walked to the closet and dressed in my silk robe, the one Jessica had been wearing just hours before. The robe felt different now, it was a garment of survival. I walked down the stairs. The house, usually spotless, showed signs of the night's violence. A large, dark stain on the white marble where Tunde had bled, the shattered glass of the lamp, the open safe door. But the debris did not look like ruin. It looked like a battlefield one. In the kitchen, Adebayo was standing with Femi. They were talking quietly. Adebayo was back in his impeccable white agbada and matching cap. Femi was dressed in a simple t-shirt, his hair ruffled, his eyes still heavy but clear. The moment I walked in, they both turned. Femi's eyes filled with tears and he walked quickly toward me. He didn't just hug me, he clung to me, resting his head on my shoulder. "Mummy," he mumbled, his voice thick with guilt. "I am so ashamed. I let her fool me. I chose her lies over your truth. I sent you out of your own home, "Shoo, my son," I soothed, holding him tightly. "The eye can be foolish, but the heart always knows its way home. That is all that matters. You saw the light before it was too late." Adebayo joined us, placing a strong hand on Femi's back. "You were blinded by love, son. Many good men have fallen to a sweet tongue and an empty heart. The important thing is that you fought back when you had the strength." We stood there, a family unit again, the three of us silent amongst the scattered evidence of the night's great drama. The healing began in that small moment of shared silence. The silence did not last. The morning brought the inevitable. "The vultures are circling Olori," Adebayo said, gesturing to his buzzing phone. "The news is breaking. Jessica's family is already claiming she was framed. They are saying we are crazy, over-controlling parents who hated our future daughter-in-law." "Let them talk," I said, sipping my tea. "No," Adebayo insisted, his eyes sharp with strategy. "We do not let them control the narrative. We need a press conference. Today. We need to own this story." Adebayo called his PR chief, Jide, a veteran who knew exactly how to handle Lagos scandals. The strategy was simple, brilliant, and designed specifically for the emotional response of our target audience. "We do not hide, Folake," Adebayo told me. "We go public. We show the world the truth, not just of Jessica's crime but of our love." The plan was set, a press conference at 2 p.m. But the opening scene would be a deliberate act of humility and a stark contrast to the opulence of the mansion. When Jide and his team arrived, I walked up to Femi's wardrobe and pulled out the crumpled Ankara dress and the rubber slippers. "What are you doing, Mummy?" Femi asked. "We are showing them the truth," I said. "We are showing them exactly what we sacrificed to save our son." The sun was high when the press conference began. The entire Lagos press corps was there, cameras flashing, jostling for position on our immaculate lawn. Adebayo, Femi, and I stood side by side. But for the initial photo opportunity, Adebayo wore the tight, faded gateman's uniform, and I wore the maid's ragged dress. Femi stood between us, dressed in a simple white linen shirt. The sight of the famous Chief Adebayo Adeleke, the man who built half of Victoria Island, standing in a security guard uniform next to his wife in rags, silenced the entire crowd. Femi stepped forward, his voice clear and resonant. This was his public atonement. "I called this press conference," Femi began, his eyes fixed firmly on the cameras, "to apologize. Not to the press but to my parents. I stand before you today because my parents, Chief Adebayo and Mrs. Folake Adeleke, had to strip away their dignity and risk their lives, pretending to be the maid and the gateman, to save me from ruin." He paused, choking back emotion. "I was blind. I was foolish. I chose a woman's false love over the eternal truth of my parents' character. When I was asked to kick them out of this house, I did it. I chose a lie because I thought I was protecting my unborn child. My parents left their home in these clothes to save my future." Femi took a deep breath. "They returned as heroes, fighting off armed criminals who had drugged me to rob my family. My fiancée, Jessica Davis, is now in police custody for attempted robbery, assault, and fraud. The pregnancy was a complete, calculated lie." Then I stepped forward. I took the microphone from Femi. I was still wearing the maid's dress, but my voice carried the steel of a matriarch. "Many people ask why we did this," I said, looking directly into the primary camera lens, speaking to the women who understood the fear of losing a child. "We did this because character is the currency of life. Money is cheap, you can lose it and make it back. But character once lost is gone forever." Our test was not for Jessica. Our test was for Femi. We had to see if he would treat the people he thought were nothing, the help, the poor, the invisible, with respect. Jessica failed that test immediately. I paused, pointing to the crumpled Ankara dress. "This dress is a reminder. No matter how high God lifts you, you must never forget the ground you stood on. Treat the gateman with the same respect you treat the Sioux. If a person cannot respect the people they think are beneath them, they cannot respect you. They can only use you." I turned to Adebayo, who stood in the uniform of the gateman who had saved the day. "My husband and I are grateful for this lesson," I concluded. "We have lost some valuables, but we have gained back our son. The price was humiliation, but the reward is family. And family is worth every sacrifice." The response was immediate and overwhelming. The hashtag Gateman Billionaire was trending globally. The story of the parents' cunning and Femi's humility went viral. Jessica's carefully constructed image evaporated overnight, replaced by the indisputable evidence of the stolen cash, the unconscious accomplice, and the medical reports confirming her fertility issues. Femi was remorseful but renewed. He immediately returned the deed to the mansion to Adebayo, who refused it. "Keep it, son," Adebayo said. "It is yours. But let this house always remind you, it is not the roof above your head that matters, but the foundation beneath your feet." Femi didn't just walk away from Jessica. He walked away from the naive life he had been living. He went straight to the police station and signed the full complaint, ensuring that justice would be thorough and severe. That evening, the three of us sat on the patio, watching the Lagos sunset paint the sky gold and crimson. The house was quiet. "What happens now, Mummy?" Femi asked, looking out at the beautiful, safe garden. "Now we live," I said, smiling. "We rebuild. And we never forget the debt we owe to the kindness of strangers. And to the lesson that pride is a very expensive accessory." But there was one final detail I couldn't forget. Adebayo had confirmed Jessica's debt problems. She owed a substantial sum to a loan shark known to use brutal methods. "Adebayo," I said, turning to my husband, "what about Jessica's debts? The ones she was trying to pay with our money?" Adebayo leaned back in his chair, a look of calm satisfaction on his face. "Ah, the debts. The court will seize her assets, but the loan shark is another problem." "And?" I prompted. Adebayo smiled, reaching across the table to hold my hand. "The loan shark, Folake? I bought the debt. Every naira she owes is now owed to me. We own her financial soul." "And what will you do with it?" I asked, my voice low with curiosity. "I will hold it," Adebayo said, his eyes sparkling in the twilight. "And when she is released from prison in 10 years, broken and alone, she will find me waiting. Not to harm her, but to offer her one final, simple choice, the choice she could never respect." He looked at me, a deep, meaningful gaze. "I will offer her a maid's uniform and a chance to truly earn an honest living." Chapter 7. They say the path to a king's house is never too long. But the path back to humility for the proud is often impossible. A decade had passed. The memory of the night Femi almost lost his future was no longer a fresh wound, but a scar, a strong white line that reminded us of where we had been, and why we would never return. The house now echoed with laughter that was real, not calculated. Femi had married a woman named Ada, an architect known for her quiet strength and kindness, whose background we vetted with a simple dinner where she asked the actual housekeeper, Mama Rose, about her family. She passed the test of character without even knowing she was taking it. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, who chased each other across the same marble floor where broken glass once lay. My role had shifted from protector to pillar. Adebayo had softened, too, spending his days teaching Femi's children about honest labor in the garden, often wearing a simple pair of overalls, a humble uniform he now wore by choice. But the final act of the drama still loomed, the fate of Jessica. For 10 years, Adebayo had held the debt, ensuring Jessica had no financial recourse, even from behind bars. The day of her release arrived, a crisp Tuesday morning. Adebayo insisted we handle this final meeting ourselves. "She needs to see us, Folake," he explained, adjusting the collar of his expensive custom-made shirt. "She needs to see the life she tried to destroy standing strong. She needs to understand what she lost." We drove to the prison in a modest car, leaving the chauffeur behind. We waited across the street, away from the immediate glare of the iron gate. The minute the gate clanged open, she emerged. Jessica. She was no longer the flashy, calculating actress. She was thin, her skin sallow, her expensive hair now cut short and dull. Her clothes were worn and gray. She walked with a hunched stiffness that spoke of years of hard time and lost hope. She was a ghost of the girl who had once stood on my balcony mocking us. She looked around, expecting to see a welcoming party or perhaps a loan shark's enforcer. Instead she saw only us. We crossed the street and stood directly in her path. Jessica stopped dead. Her face, hardened by prison, crumpled in pure, raw disbelief. She had expected freedom. She found judgment. "Chief Adeleke," she whispered, her voice rough. "Mrs. Adeleke, what are you doing here?" Adebayo's face was unreadable. "I came to settle a debt, Jessica. A debt you owe not to the government but to me." "I don't owe you anything," she spat, summoning a flicker of her old rage. "You do," Adebayo said simply. "You owe the bank that held your massive loan. A loan I purchased 7 years ago. Every naira of it. You owe me over 80 million. The interest alone is substantial." He pulled a thick, official-looking contract from his briefcase. "You have 2 choices, Jessica. 1, I release this debt back to the open market, and the collection agents will find you before the sun sets. Or 2. Adebayo paused, reaching into the briefcase again. He pulled out a crisp, brand-new uniform. It was the uniform of a housekeeper, a neat blue tunic, black trousers and a small, white cap. It was clean, dignified and simple. Or two, Adebayo continued, holding out the uniform. You report to my remote farm estate in Ijebuode tomorrow morning. You will work as a cleaner and maid for a period of 10 years. You will be paid minimum wage, you will be housed and you will be fed. You will live a life of honest, hard labor. And if, at the end of 10 years, you have shown true change and humility, I will tear up the debt, and you will be a free woman. Jessica stared at the uniform. Her eyes darted from the fabric to Adebayo's face, then to mine. You want me to be a maid? She scoffed, a desperate, broken laugh escaping her lips. To be a servant? After all this? Yes, I said, stepping forward. We are offering you the chance for a clean slate. A path back to character, which is the only thing money cannot buy. She looked at the uniform again. It was a tangible lifeline. But it was also the symbol of her ultimate humiliation. She would have to become the person she had despised and mocked in order to survive. Her hand trembled as she reached for the uniform. For a moment I saw a flash of hope, a chance for redemption. But then the deep-seated pride that had caused her downfall flared up one last time. Her lips curled into the familiar sneer. You people are monsters. You are billionaires and this is your revenge? To make me clean your dirt? She slapped the uniform out of Adebayo's hand. The blue tunic fell onto the dusty pavement. Go to hell, she spat, turning on her heel. I will pay the debt. You will never break me. She walked away, not toward the city but toward the open road, her shoulders stiff with stubbornness, walking straight into the impossible future her pride had chosen for her. Adebayo sighed, watching her retreat. He didn't look angry. He looked sad. The greatest tragedy, Adebayo murmured, bending down to retrieve the clean uniform, is the woman who is offered salvation, but chooses the wilderness. She made her choice, Bayo, I said, laying a gentle hand on his arm. The river cannot force the tree to bend. We walked back to the car. We didn't need to chase her. We knew the debt would chase her better than any man could. Jessica was now a fugitive from her own pride. We drove away, leaving her to her fate on the dusty road. I stood on the balcony of the mansion later that day watching my grandchildren playing in the garden. Femi was teaching his son how to prune the roses, explaining that you must cut away the dead parts to allow the healthy parts to flourish. I smiled. The house was no longer just a house. It was a lesson. Femi had his chance at redemption and he took it. He learned that the true measure of a person is not the height of their bank account, but the depth of their character. My husband and I had risked everything, our fortune, our dignity, even our lives, to teach him that lesson. And we succeeded. The memory of the maid's faded Ankara dress and the gateman's tight gray uniform will forever be the most expensive, most valuable garments we ever owned. They were the key to the heart of our son, and the foundation upon which our family was rebuilt. We taught our son to be careful of whom he invites to his table. For a thief may steal your money, but a person of bad character will steal your very soul. And the soul is a thing of such value even a billionaire cannot buy it back. The story was over. The lesson was learned.